My name is Celeste, and I'm 28 years old. Growing up, my older sister Harper was my world. I can still smell the vanilla wafting through our childhood kitchen as she taught me to bake Mom's special cookies, her laughter filling the air. Those moments felt like love itself. But I never imagined Harper could break my heart in a way that would change me forever. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply it blinded you? Stick with me to uncover this journey. Where are you watching from? Like and subscribe if you've ever loved someone who let you down. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was Harper asking if I could swing by her bakery to help with a big order. At 28, I was still her go-to for weekend shifts, and I loved it. The bakery was Harper's dream, built from years of late-night planning and Mom's old recipe cards. I pulled on my favorite sweater, the one with the tiny coffee stain from our last baking session, and headed out. The morning air was crisp, and I felt a quiet pride thinking about Harper's success. She'd turned our childhood kitchen memories into something real, something people lined up for. When I got there, the place was buzzing. Customers crowded the counter, their chatter mixing with the hum of the espresso machine. Harper was in her element, all smiles and quick hands passing out trays of pastries. I slipped behind the counter, tying on an apron, and started boxing up orders. The familiar rhythm of folding boxes and stacking cookies felt like home. But then Harper pulled me aside, her voice low and urgent. "Celeste, I need a favor. It's big." I raised an eyebrow, wiping flour off my hands. "What's up?" She glanced around, making sure no one was listening. "It's about Mom's cookie recipe, the one we always made together. I want to feature it as our signature item. It'll put the bakery on the map." My stomach tightened. That recipe wasn't just a list of ingredients. It was Mom's handwriting on a faded index card, the one we'd pull out every Sunday after she got sick. It was her laugh when I'd sneak extra chocolate chips, her gentle nudge to measure the sugar just right. Harper knew how much it meant to me. "You mean sell it, like officially?" I asked, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. "Yeah," Harper said, her eyes bright. "But we'll call it Mom's Special. Keep her memory alive. I just need your okay to use it." I hesitated, my fingers tracing the edge of the counter. The recipe felt like the last piece of Mom I could hold on to. But Harper was my sister, the one who'd stayed up with me after Mom's funeral, the one who'd promised we'd always have each other. How could I say no? "Okay," I said finally. "But it's Mom's. Always." Harper hugged me quick and tight. "You're the best, Celeste. I swear this is going to be huge." The rest of the day passed in a blur of orders and small talk with customers. I tried to shake off the unease, telling myself it was just nerves. Harper wouldn't do anything to hurt me. She'd promised to honor Mom. But as the afternoon wore on, I noticed something off. A customer, an older woman with a warm smile, raved about the cookies to her friend. "Harper's signature cookies are divine," she said, clutching a box. "She's a genius for coming up with them." My heart sank. Harper's signature. I glanced at the display case where a new sign advertised the cookies. No mention of Mom. No Mom's Special. Just Harper's name, bold and proud. I felt a pang, sharp and unexpected, like a splinter under my skin. Maybe it was a mistake, I thought. A mix-up with the signage. I found Harper in the back, kneading dough for tomorrow's bread. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "What's with the sign out front? It says Harper's signature cookies. I thought we agreed on Mom's Special." Harper didn't look up, her hands working the dough with steady precision. "Oh, that. Yeah, I changed it. Customers connect better with my name. It's marketing, Celeste. You get it." I stood there stunned. "But you said we'd honor Mom." "That was the whole point." She sighed, finally meeting my eyes. "We are honoring her. The cookies are out there making people happy. Does the name really matter?" I opened my mouth, then closed it. Her words felt like a brush-off, like I was being childish for caring. I wanted to argue, to tell her it mattered to me, but the words stuck in my throat. Harper went back to her dough, and I turned away, my chest tight. As I returned to the counter, I caught Bailey's eye. She was Harper's right hand, a quiet woman with sharp eyes who'd been with the bakery since it opened. She was wiping down the espresso machine, but her gaze lingered on me like she'd heard the whole thing. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just a misunderstanding." Bailey nodded, but her expression didn't change. She knew something I could tell, but she didn't say more. I went back to boxing orders, my hands moving on autopilot. The bakery felt different now, its warmth fading into something colder. I kept replaying Harper's words, her casual dismissal. It wasn't just the sign. It was the way she'd looked at me, like my feelings were an inconvenience. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mom's recipe, about the way Harper had made it hers without a second thought. Was I overreacting? Maybe she was right and the name didn't matter. But deep down I knew it did. It was the first crack in something I thought was unbreakable, and I wasn't sure how to fix it. The next morning I sat at my kitchen table, a mug of coffee gone cold in my hands. My apartment was quiet, but my mind wasn't. Harper's words from yesterday kept looping, her casual shrug when I'd brought up Mom's recipe. I wanted to believe it was just a marketing thing like she'd said, but the sting of that sign, Harper's signature cookies, wouldn't fade. I pulled out my phone and opened the bakery's social media page, hoping to find some trace of Mom's name. Instead, I saw a new post, a glossy photo of the cookies captioned "Harper's masterpiece, crafted from scratch." Crafted from scratch. The words hit like a slap. I set the phone down, my hands shaking. Harper and I had always been a team. After Mom died when I was 16 and she was 21, she'd been the one to hold me together. She'd drive me to school, make sure I ate, even braid my hair when I couldn't stop crying. How could she erase Mom like this? I told myself I'd talk to her again, make her see why it hurt. But first, I needed perspective. I needed Dad. I drove to Dad's house, a small ranch-style place on the edge of town. He'd remarried a couple years ago, and things had been tense with Sheila, his new wife. Still, Dad was the only one who'd understand what Mom's recipe meant. When I pulled into the driveway, he was in the garage, tinkering with an old radio. "Hey, kiddo," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. His smile was warm, but his eyes looked tired. "Dad, can we talk?" I asked, leaning against the workbench. "It's about Harper." He nodded, but his shoulders stiffened. "What's she done now?" I told him about the recipe, the sign, the social media post. I expected him to be as upset as I was, to say something about how Mom deserved better. But he just sighed, setting the radio down. "Harper's always been headstrong, Celeste. She's trying to build something. Maybe let it go." "Let it go," I repeated, my voice sharper than I meant. "Dad, it's Mom's recipe. She's acting like it's hers." He rubbed his neck, avoiding my eyes. "Business is tough. She's probably just doing what she thinks is best." I stared at him, the air in the garage feeling heavier. Dad had never been great at confrontation, but this was different. He was dodging me like he knew something he wasn't saying. Before I could press him, Sheila stepped out, her arms crossed. "You two talking about Harper's empire again?" she said, her tone clipped. "That girl's got ambition, I'll give her that. Too bad it's at everyone else's expense." I bristled. Sheila and I weren't close, but her words cut deeper than they should have. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. She smirked, leaning against the doorframe. "Ask your sister how she's funding her little dream. Might surprise you." I looked at Dad, waiting for him to shut her down, but he just turned back to his radio, muttering something about needing a new fuse. My stomach churned. What was Sheila hinting at? I wanted to demand answers, but the way Dad clammed up told me I'd get nowhere. I left feeling more unsettled than when I'd arrived, Sheila's words echoing in my head. Back at my apartment, I tried to distract myself with work, but my mind kept drifting. I called Bailey, hoping she'd give me some clarity. She'd been at the bakery longer than me, and she'd seen my face yesterday. Maybe she knew something. "Hey, it's Celeste," I said when she picked up. "Can we talk about Harper and the cookies?" There was a pause long enough to make me nervous. "Yeah, sure," Bailey said finally. "But not over the phone. Meet me at the park tomorrow." "Why not now?" I pressed my heart, picking up speed. "It's complicated," she said, her voice low. "Harper's been making some moves. Business stuff. I don't want to get into it here." I gripped the phone tighter. "Moves like what?" "Just meet me tomorrow." "Okay, I'll explain." She hung up before I could argue. I sat there staring at the wall. Bailey's hesitation, Sheila's cryptic jab, Dad's silence. It was all adding up to something I didn't want to face. Harper wasn't just renaming the cookies. She was hiding something bigger. I pulled out an old shoebox from my closet, one I hadn't touched in years. Inside was a stack of photos from when we were kids. I found one of me and Harper Flower on our cheeks grinning over a tray of Mom's cookies. My throat tightened. That girl in the photo wouldn't lie to me. Would she? I set the photo down, my unease growing into something sharper. Whatever Harper was doing, it wasn't just about a sign or a social media post. It was deeper, and I was starting to realize I might not know my sister as well as I thought. I met Bailey at the park the next day, my nerves frayed from a sleepless night. She was waiting on a bench, her hands stuffed in her jacket pockets, looking like she hadn't slept much either. The air was chilly and fallen leaves crunched under my boots as I sat down. "Okay," I said, cutting straight to it. "What's going on with Harper?" Bailey glanced around like she was checking for eavesdroppers. "Celeste, it's bad." I didn't want to say anything at the bakery, but Harper's not just renaming the cookies. She trademarked the recipe. Under her name. Not your mom's, not the family's. Hers. My breath caught. Trademarked how it's Mom's recipe. She can't do that. She did? Bailey said, her voice low. I saw the paperwork last month. She's been planning this for a while, talking to some investor guy about expanding. I felt the ground tilt under me. A trademark meant Harper wasn't just taking credit. She was claiming ownership, locking me and Dad out. I pressed my hands to my knees, trying to steady myself. "Who's the investor?" I asked. "Some guy named Marcus. Slick suit, big promises. He's been around a lot, pushing Harper to go big. National chains, the works." Bailey hesitated, then added, "I think he's the one who told her to trademark it." I stood up, pacing the path. My mind raced back to Harper's urgency at the bakery, her promise to honor Mom. It was all a lie. I thought of Mom's index card tucked in my drawer, her loopy handwriting spelling out love in every ingredient. Harper had taken that and turned it into her own empire. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. Bailey flinched. "I wanted to. But Harper's my boss, Celeste. I need this job." I kept hoping she'd come clean. I stopped pacing, guilt mixing with my anger. Bailey wasn't the one who betrayed me. "I'm sorry," I said, sitting back down. I need to talk to her. Now." I drove straight to the bakery, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles ached. The lunch rush was in full swing, but I didn't care. I found Harper in the back, rolling out dough, her apron dusted with flour. She looked up, surprised. "Celeste." "What's wrong? Tell me about the trademark," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Her face froze just for a second before she forced a laugh. "What are you talking about? Did Bailey say something? She's always stirring drama." "Don't lie to me, Harper," I said, stepping closer. "You trademarked Mom's recipe. You didn't even ask me. Or Dad." She set the rolling pin down, her eyes narrowing. "Okay, yeah, I did. I had to. Marcus said it's the only way to protect the business. This investor deal could change everything, Celeste. For all of us. You're too hung up on sentimentality to see the big picture." Her words cut deeper than I expected. Sentimentality. That recipe was Mom's legacy, our legacy. You didn't protect the business, I said, my voice rising. You stole from us. From Mom. Harper's jaw tightened. "I'm not stealing. I'm building a future. You think Mom would want us stuck in the past, baking cookies in her kitchen forever? Grow up, Celeste." I felt like she'd slap me. The sister who'd held my hand at Mom's funeral, who'd promised we'd always be a team, was gone. In her place was someone I didn't recognize, someone who'd trade our family for a deal. I turned to leave, but a man's voice stopped me. "Is there a problem here?" I spun around to see a man in a tailored suit, his smile too polished. "Marcus." He stepped forward, extending a hand. "You must be Celeste. Harper's told me about you." I ignored his hand. "Yeah, did she tell you she's using our Mom's recipe to make you rich?" His smile didn't waver, but his eyes went cold. Business is business. Harper's making smart moves. You should be proud. I looked at Harper, waiting for her to say something to stand up for me. But she just stared at the floor, her silence louder than any words. I walked out, my heart pounding, the bakery's warmth suffocating. That night I sat on my couch scrolling through Harper's social media again. A new post caught my eye, a video of her and Marcus announcing a partnership with a national chain. The cookies. Mom's cookies were front and center, branded as Harper's creation. My anger flared, and under it was something heavier: grief. I wasn't just losing Mom's recipe. I was losing my sister. I couldn't stay in my apartment after seeing that video. The walls felt too close, the air too thick. I grabbed my keys and drove, no destination in mind, just needing to move. The city lights blurred past, and my thoughts churned. Harper's face in that video, all polished confidence next to Marcus, kept flashing in my mind. She looked like a stranger, someone who'd traded our shared history for a spotlight. I ended up at Dad's house, the only place I could think to go. He was in the living room, a baseball game flickering on the TV. Sheila was in the kitchen, the clink of dishes carrying through the open door. Celeste, Dad said, sitting up when he saw me. "It's late. Everything okay?" I sank onto the couch, my hands twisting in my lap. "No, Dad. It's not. Harper's selling Mom's recipe to a national chain. Did you know?" His face fell and he muted the TV. "I heard something about a deal," he said slowly. "She mentioned investors a while back. I didn't know it was Mom's recipe." I leaned forward, my voice trembling. "She trademarked it, Dad. She's acting like it's hers. And you're just fine with it." He rubbed his eyes, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "Harper came to me last year asking for a loan. Said she needed it to grow the bakery. I gave her everything I had in savings. She promised to pay it back, but..." He trailed off, shaking his head. My chest tightened. "She never paid you back, did she?" "No," he said quietly. "And now she's too busy with this Marcus guy to even call." I felt a surge of anger, not just at Harper, but at Dad for letting her walk all over him. "Why didn't you tell me? We could have stopped her." "It's not that simple. Celeste," he said, his voice heavy. "She's my daughter too. I thought she'd do right by us." Before I could respond, Sheila walked in, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Told you, Celeste," she said, her tone sharp but not unkind. "Harper's been playing you all. She's got your dad wrapped around her finger, and now she's got your Mom's legacy too." "Enough," Sheila, Dad snapped, but there was no fire in it. She ignored him, looking at me. "You want to know the real kicker? Harper's been cozying up to that chain for months. I saw her at a fancy dinner with their execs when I was out with my book club. All smiles, acting like she owns the world." I felt sick. Harper hadn't just lied about the trademark. She'd been building this deal behind our backs, piece by piece. I stood up, needing air, but Sheila's voice followed me. "You keep thinking she's your sweet big sister. She's not. She's out for herself. Stop it," I said, turning to face her. "You don't get to talk about her like that." She raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because it's true." Dad stood, his hands raised. "Both of you, please. This isn't helping." But it was too late. Sheila's words had burrowed into me, mixing with the betrayal already festering. I walked out, the screen door slamming behind me. The night air was cold, but it did nothing to cool the heat in my chest. I drove to the bakery, not sure what I was looking for, but when I got there, the lights were still on. Bailey was inside, cleaning up. She let me in, her face tight with worry. "Celeste, you shouldn't be here," she said, glancing at the door. "I need answers," I said, my voice shaking. "What else is Harper hiding?" Bailey hesitated, then pulled a folder from a drawer. "I wasn't going to show you this, but you deserve to know." She opened it, revealing a stack of documents. "These are contracts. Harper signed them with the chain. But look here." She pointed to a signature at the bottom of one page. It was mine. My name, my handwriting perfectly forged. I stared at it, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear Bailey's voice. "She used my name," I whispered. "She forged my signature." Bailey nodded, her eyes full of pity. I'm sorry, Celeste. I found it last week. I didn't know how to tell you. I backed away, the room spinning. Harper hadn't just taken Mom's recipe. She'd taken my identity, my trust, everything. I stumbled outside, collapsing onto the curb. The neon sign above the bakery flickered, casting a cold glow. I thought of Mom, of the nights we'd spent baking, of Harper's promise to keep us together. It was all gone. And the worst part, I still loved her even now, and that hurt more than anything. I stood outside the banquet hall, my breath visible in the cool evening air. The gala for Harper's bakery expansion was in full swing, the kind of event where chandeliers sparkled and champagne flutes clinked. I'd spent days debating whether to come, my heart torn between confronting Harper and running from the truth. But the forged signature, the stolen recipe, Dad's drained savings, it was too much to ignore. I adjusted Mom's old necklace, its tiny silver pendant cool against my skin, and walked inside. The room was a sea of suits and smiles, everyone buzzing about Harper's big night. A banner stretched across the stage, Harper's signature cookies national launch. My stomach churned at the sight of Mom's recipe plastered everywhere, her memory erased. I spotted Harper near the front, radiant in a navy dress, laughing with a group of investors. Marcus was at her side, his hand on her arm, his grin all teeth. I stayed near the back, blending into the crowd, my pulse racing. I'd planned to pull Harper aside to demand answers in private. But as I watched her work the room, something shifted. She wasn't just my sister anymore. She was a performer selling a lie. I clutched the necklace, Mom's voice echoing in my head. "Stand up for what's yours, Celeste." I wasn't sure I could not in front of all these people. But then Marcus took the stage, and I knew I had to move. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus said, his voice smooth as silk. "Tonight we celebrate Harper, a visionary who created something extraordinary. Harper's signature cookies aren't just a treat, they're a revolution. And now they're going national." The crowd erupted in applause, but I felt like I was underwater, every sound muffled. Harper joined him, beaming as if she'd baked every cookie herself. No mention of Mom, no hint of the family she'd betrayed. My hands shook and I took a step forward, then another. The crowd parted slightly, their eyes on me, curious. I reached the edge of the stage, my voice finding its way out before I could stop it. "Those cookies aren't Harper's," I said loud enough for the room to hush. "They're my mother's. She created them, not you." The silence was deafening. Harper's smile faltered, her eyes locking onto mine. Marcus chuckled, trying to smooth it over. "Looks like we have a passionate fan," he said. But his tone was tight. I climbed onto the stage, my legs trembling but my resolve firm. "I'm her sister," I said, facing the crowd. "That recipe was our Mom's, written in her handwriting, baked with us in our kitchen. Harper stole it. She forged my signature to trademark it. She lied to our family." Murmurs rippled through the room. I saw Bailey near the back, her face pale, nodding slightly as if to urge me on. Harper's expression hardened, and she stepped toward me, her voice low but sharp. "Celeste, stop this. You're embarrassing yourself." "Embarrassing myself," I said, turning to her. "You're the one who built this on a lie. How could you do this to Mom, to us?" The crowd was whispering now, phones out, recording. Marcus tried to intervene, his hand on Harper's shoulder. "Let's take this off stage," he said, but I wasn't done. "No," I said, my voice rising. "People deserve to know the truth. You didn't create those cookies, Harper. You stole them, and you broke our family to do it." Harper's face twisted, and for a moment I thought she'd break. But then she laughed, cold and cutting. "You're jealous, Celeste. You always have been. You can't stand that I made something of myself while you're stuck in the past, clinging to Mom's ghost." Her words hit like a punch, knocking the air from my lungs. The crowd gasped, some nodding like they believed her. I felt the weight of their stares, the room closing in. Bailey started toward the stage, but Marcus blocked her, his smile gone. Harper turned back to the crowd, her voice steady now. "My sister's confused," she said. "She doesn't understand business. Let's move on." I stood frozen, Mom's necklace burning against my chest. Harper had just painted me as the bitter little sister, and people were buying it. my truth. Mom's truth was slipping away, and I didn't know how to hold on to it. The applause started again, hesitant at first, then louder, drowning out my voice. I looked at Harper, hoping for a flicker of regret, but her eyes were ice. The room spun, and I knew this wasn't over, not yet. The applause faded, but the room still buzzed with whispers as I stood on the stage, my heart hammering. Harper's words echoed in my ears, calling me jealous, painting me as small. I wanted to scream to make the crowd see her lies, but my throat felt sealed shut. Then Marcus gestured to the side, and a door opened. Dad walked in, his face pale, Sheila trailing behind him. My stomach dropped. What were they doing here? Harper's eyes widened, but she recovered quickly, crossing her arms. "Great," she said loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Now the whole family's here to ruin my night." I turned to Dad, hoping he'd back me up. "Dad, tell them," I said, my voice cracking. "Tell them what Harper did. The loan, the recipe, the forgery." He hesitated, his gaze darting between me and Harper. The crowd leaned in, sensing the drama. "Celeste," he said finally, his voice low, "this isn't the place. Let's talk at home." My heart sank. "Not the place," I repeated, stepping toward him. "She stole from us, Dad. She used your money, Mom's recipe, my name. You know it's true." Sheila snorted, her voice cutting through the tension. "Oh, she knows it's true. But Gregory's too spineless to admit he let Harper play him. Always has been." The crowd murmured some stifling laughs. Dad's face reddened, but he didn't respond. Harper seized the moment, her voice sharp. "Celeste, you're dragging Dad into this to make me look bad. You've always been the golden child, the one Mom loved more. I had to fight for everything. This bakery, it's mine because I earned it, not because I cried for Mom's approval like you." Her words were a knife twisting deep. The accusation that Mom loved me more wasn't new. Harper had hinted at it when we were kids, but hearing it now in front of strangers was like being stripped bare. I saw flashes of our childhood Harper staying late at school to avoid Mom's sickbed, me curled up reading to her. Had Harper felt left out? The thought made my chest ache, but it didn't erase her betrayal. I opened my mouth to respond, but Harper wasn't done. She turned to the crowd, her voice steady, almost theatrical. "And here's the real truth. Celeste's just mad because I succeeded where she couldn't. She's been coasting on Mom's memory while I built something real. Oh, and that forgery, pure fiction. She's desperate for attention." The room erupted in gasps, phones raised higher. I felt like I was sinking, the ground crumbling beneath me. "That's not true," I said, but my voice was weak, drowned out by the crowd's chatter. I looked at Bailey, still stuck near the back, her eyes wide with frustration as Marcus kept her from moving closer. Then Harper dropped the final blow. "You want to talk about stealing? Let's talk about Mom's will. Celeste thinks she deserved everything, but Mom left the recipe to me. She knew I'd do something with it. You're just too selfish to accept it." I froze, the world narrowing to Harper's face. Mom's will. We'd never seen it. Dad had handled everything after her death, saying it was too painful to discuss. I turned to him, my voice barely a whisper. "Dad, is that true?" He looked away, his hands clenched. "It's complicated," he mumbled. "There was a letter, not a will. Harper found it. She said it gave her the recipe." My knees buckled. A letter. Harper had known about this and never told me. And Dad had let her keep it secret. The crowd was a blur now, their voices a dull roar. Sheila stepped forward, her expression smug. "Told you, Celeste? Your sister's been playing a long game, and you fell for it." I stumbled back, my hand clutching Mom's necklace like a lifeline. Harper's lie about the will, Dad's silence, Sheila's taunts. It was too much. My family, the one I'd fought to protect, was fracturing in front of a room full of strangers. Harper stood tall, her victory sealed, while I felt like nothing, my truth buried under her story. My chest heaved, tears burning, but I couldn't cry, not here. All I could feel was the weight of everything I'd lost pressing me down with no way out. I left the gala in a daze, the city's hum fading into a dull ache. My apartment felt like a stranger's, every corner heavy with the weight of Harper's lies. Mom's necklace lay on my nightstand, its silver glint a quiet reminder of what I'd lost. But as dawn broke, something shifted. I couldn't let Harper erase Mom's legacy, not after everything. I wasn't ready to forgive, but I was done being silent. I needed to fight not for revenge, but for truth. I started with a call to Renee, a lawyer I'd met through a friend's referral. Her office was a cramped space downtown, stacked with files and coffee mugs. "Celeste," she said, leaning across her desk, "this won't be easy. Harper's trademark is filed, and that forged signature complicates things. But if you've got evidence, we can challenge it." Her voice was steady, no nonsense, and it grounded me. "I have evidence," I said, pulling out a folder I'd put together overnight. Inside were Mom's old recipe card photos of us baking as kids, and a USB drive with screenshots of Harper's social media posts claiming the cookies as hers. I'd also included Bailey's contact info. She'd agreed to testify about the forgery. Renee flipped through the folder, her brow furrowed. "This is a start," she said. "We'll need more, but it's enough to file a claim." I nodded, my resolve hardening. "What do I do next?" "Gather anything else you can," she said. "Letters, emails, anything tying the recipe to your mom. And be ready for pushback. Harper's got money behind her now." The mention of money made my stomach twist. Marcus. I'd seen his cold eyes at the gala, his grip on Harper's success. I thanked Renee and left my mind racing. That night I went to the bakery after hours, using the spare key Harper had given me years ago. The place was dark, the air thick with the scent of sugar and yeast. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I needed something tangible, something to anchor my fight. In the back office, I found a locked drawer. My hands shook as I jimmied it open, with a paperclip gilt prickling at the edges of my conscience. Inside was a wooden box one Mom had used to store her baking tools, a rolling pin, a chipped measuring cup, a whisk with a worn handle. I lifted the box, my throat tightening. These were hers, pieces of her Harper had no right to keep. I tucked it under my arm and left the weight of it steadying me. Back home, I spread the tools on my kitchen table, each one a memory. The measuring cup had a dent from when I dropped it, giggling as Mom scooped me up. I couldn't let Harper take this too. I opened my laptop and started a blog. Something I'd never done before. My fingers hovered over the keys, then I began. "My name is Celeste, and this is the story of my mother's cookies, the ones my sister stole." I wrote about Mom, about the recipe, about the love baked into every batch. I uploaded a photo of the recipe card, its edges curled from years of use. Before I hit publish, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus back off Celeste. "You're in over your head. Lawsuits are expensive and you'll lose everything." My blood ran cold. How did he even have my number? I stared at the screen, fear creeping in, but then I looked at Mom's tools. This wasn't just about me. It was about her, about us. I hit publish, my heart pounding with a mix of terror and defiance. The blog was live, a small act, but it felt like a shout into the void. I didn't know if anyone would read it, but I'd taken the first step. For the first time since the gala, I felt a spark of strength, like I was finally claiming something back. I wasn't sure what came next, but I knew I wasn't stopping. The blog post sat live for a day, and I checked it obsessively, half expecting no one to care. But by morning, comments trickled in, strangers sharing stories of lost recipes, of family ties broken by greed. A local journalist, Nora, reached out asking to feature my story in her column. Her email was kind but direct. "Your fight's resonating, Celeste. People want to hear more." I stared at the words, a flicker of hope sparking. Maybe I wasn't alone in this after all. I decided to lean in, to do something bigger than words on a screen. Mom's cookies deserved more than a lawsuit. They deserved to be shared, to live on in the way she'd intended. I spent the next day calling community centers, pitching a bake-off to honor her recipe. The director at the local rec center, a woman named Joyce with a no-nonsense warmth, loved the idea. "Let's do it," she said. "We'll make it a celebration of family, of legacy." I hung up my hands, trembling with purpose. Planning the bake-off consumed me. I rented tables, ordered ingredients, and spread the word through Nora's column and my blog. The event would be simple. Anyone could bake Mom's recipe, share their stories, and taste the cookies that had defined my childhood. I wanted the community to feel what I felt when I baked with her, the love, the connection. But as the day approached, doubt crept in. What if Harper showed up? What if no one came? The morning of the bake-off, I arrived at the rec center early. Mom's wooden box of tools tucked under my arm. The gym was transformed, long tables draped in checkered cloths, balloons bobbing in the corners. Joyce greeted me with a hug, her energy infectious. "You're gonna knock this out of the park," she said. I forced a smile, but my nerves were raw. As people trickled in, I set up my station, laying out Mom's recipe card for all to see. Families, kids. Even a few elderly couples showed up, their arms full of mixing bowls and cookie sheets. The air filled with chatter and the clatter of utensils, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a lightness. Then the doors swung open and Harper walked in. My heart stopped. She wore a plain sweater, no trace of the gala's polish, but her presence hit like a storm. The room didn't notice, too caught up in the bustle, but I felt every eye on me as she approached. "Celeste," she said, her voice soft, almost broken. "Can we talk? I'm sorry. I didn't mean for things to go this far." I froze the whisk in my hand, trembling. Part of me wanted to believe her, to pull her into a hug and pretend the last months hadn't happened. But the memory of her at the gala, her cold accusations, held me back. "Sorry doesn't undo what you did," I said, my voice low but firm. "You stole Mom's recipe, Harper. You used me. You used Dad." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't back down. "I know I messed up. But I'm here now. Let me make it right." I shook my head, stepping back. "This isn't about you today. It's about Mom. If you want to make it right, leave." My words surprised me, steady and sharp, like they'd been waiting to escape. Harper's face crumpled, but she nodded and walked out the door, clicking shut behind her. The bake-off went on, the room alive with laughter and the warm scent of baking cookies. I moved through the crowd, helping a kid measure flour, listening to an older man share how his grandma's cookies tasted like these. Each story felt like a brick building something solid where Harper's lies had torn me down. Dad showed up late, his face etched with regret. "I'm proud of you," he said, his voice thick. "I should have spoken up sooner. I'll testify, Celeste. Whatever you need." I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Sheila lingered behind him, and to my shock, she slipped an envelope into my hand. "For your legal fees," she muttered. "Don't make a big deal of it." I peeked inside, a check, more than I'd expected. Her gesture gruff, as it was felt like a crack in the wall between us. As the event wound down, a girl, maybe 8, tugged at my apron. She held up a crayon drawing of a cookie, her smile shy. "You're the cookie lady," she said. "This is for you." I took the drawing, my throat tight. The gym was emptying, but I felt fuller than I had in months. I stood alone at my station, Mom's recipe card in front of me, the drawing beside it. I didn't say a word, but my eyes burned with a quiet fire. This was my fight now, and I was ready. The bake-off changed something, not just in me, but in the air around me. My blog post, amplified by Nora's column, spread faster than I'd imagined. By the next week, it had thousands of shares, people tagging friends, leaving comments about their own stolen legacies. I'd check my phone at lunch, scrolling through stories of grandmother's quilts, father's tools, all taken or forgotten. Each one felt like a hand reaching out, pulling me forward. But with the attention came a shadow I hadn't expected. I was at the grocery store picking up flour for a new batch of Mom's cookies when I overheard 2 women in the aisle. "That bakery girl's a fraud," one said, her voice low but sharp. "Saw it online. Her sister's suing her over some recipe." The other nodded, tossing a bag of sugar into her cart. "Shame. I love those cookies." I froze my fingers tight around the flour bag. They didn't know I was there, didn't see the way my chest tightened. I paid and left their words looping in my head. At home, I checked the news. The lawsuit had leaked and Harper's Bakery was taking a hit. A local blog posted about trouble at Harper's Signature, quoting customers who felt betrayed. I should have felt vindicated, but instead a knot formed in my stomach. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? To expose Harper's lies. But seeing her dream crumble even a little brought no joy. I thought of her face at the bake-off, the way her eyes had glistened before she left. I pushed the thought away, focusing on the next step. Renee called that afternoon, her voice brisk. "Good news, Celeste. The chain's pulling the cookies from their stores. The bad press from your blog got to them. And Harper's trademark. We've got a hearing scheduled. Your evidence is solid." I sat on my couch, the phone pressed to my ear, waiting for relief to wash over me. It didn't. "What about Harper?" I asked. "What's happening to her?" Renee paused. "Her bakery's struggling. Marcus bailed on her, took his money elsewhere. She's fighting the lawsuit, but it's not looking good." I thanked her and hung up, staring at the wall. Marcus gone. That surprised me. He'd seemed glued to Harper's side, his promises of wealth her lifeline. I wondered what she was feeling alone in her shop, but I stopped myself. She'd made her choices. The backlash wasn't just online. I started getting messages from Harper's regulars, people I'd served coffee to on weekends. Some were kind, saying they supported me, but others were brutal. "You're tearing down a local business," one email read. "How could you do this to your sister?" Another called me selfish, said I was ruining jobs for Bailey and the others. I read each one, my hands cold until I couldn't anymore. I shut my laptop, but the words lingered heavy as stones. Bailey called later, her voice tense. "Celeste, I quit the bakery today." I sat up, startled. "What?" "Why, it's not the same," she said. "Harper's a mess, snapping at everyone. And after what she did to you, I couldn't stay. I want to help you. I've got more documents, emails between Harper and Marcus about the chain deal. They prove she knew the recipe wasn't hers." I listened, my heart racing. Bailey's choice felt like a lifeline, but it also meant Harper was losing more than just customers. I thanked her, promising to meet soon, but when I hung up, the knot in my stomach tightened. I went to my kitchen, needing something to do with my hands. Mom's wooden box sat on the counter, a quiet anchor. I pulled out her whisk, running my thumb over its worn handle, and started mixing dough. The rhythm usually calmed me, but tonight it didn't. I kept seeing Harper's empty bakery, the closed sign I'd driven past yesterday. I kept hearing the grocery store women, the angry emails. Had I gone too far? Was I breaking more than just Harper's lies? The dough sat untouched, my hands still as the weight of what I'd started pressed down, unyielding. I woke to a package on my doorstep, no note, just a plain cardboard box. Inside was a ceramic cookie jar, white with a faint blue glaze, the kind Mom would have loved. I ran my fingers over its smooth curve, wondering who'd sent it. A neighbor, a blog reader. It felt like a quiet nod, a reminder that my fight wasn't invisible. I set it on my counter next to Mom's tools, but its presence didn't lift the heaviness in my chest. The world was shifting, and I wasn't sure I liked the shape it was taking. Harper filed a countersuit the next day. Renee called with the news, her voice clipped. "She's claiming emotional distress, saying your blog and the bake-off humiliated her. It's a long shot, but it'll drag things out." I sat on my bed, the phone heavy in my hand. Emotional distress. Harper, who'd forged my name, who'd stood on that gala stage and called me jealous, was playing the victim. I should have been furious, but all I felt was a dull ache, like I'd been running too long and couldn't catch my breath. I went to see Dad, needing his steadiness. He was in his backyard, pruning rose bushes, the air sharp with the scent of cut stems. "You heard about the countersuit?" I asked, sitting on the porch steps. He nodded, not looking up. "Harper called. She's hurting Celeste. Says you're tearing her life apart." His voice was soft, but each word landed like a stone. I stared at him, my throat tight. "She's hurting Dad. She stole from us. She lied. And you're taking her side." "I'm not," he said, setting the shears down. "But you're both my girls. I hate seeing you like this." He paused, his eyes meeting mine for the first time. "Your mom would have hated it too." His words stung, not because they were harsh, but because they were true. Mom had always been the glue, the one who'd pull us together. Now we were unraveling, and I was part of it. I stood, needing to move, but Dad grabbed my hand. I'll testify for you, he said. I found some old letters from your mom about the recipe. They're yours if you need them. I nodded, unable to speak. His offer was a lifeline, but it didn't ease the guilt gnawing at me. I drove home the letters in a manila envelope on the passenger seat. When I opened them, Mom's handwriting spilled across the pages, notes about vanilla ratios, tips for crispy edges. One letter ended with a line, "For my girls always." I pressed my fingers to the ink, my eyes burning. Harper had seen this and still claimed it as hers. Sheila called later, her voice gruff but steady. I know we're not close, Celeste, but I get it. My sister took my mom's jewelry after she passed, sold it without a word. It's why I'm hard on Harper. You're doing what I couldn't. I listened, stunned by her candor, her story a mirror to my own. Keep going, she said before hanging up. Her words lingered a strange comfort. The next day I got a call from a local cafe, The Hearth, run by a woman named Lila. She'd read my blog and wanted to sell Mom's cookies with full credit to her. No chains, no lies, Lila said. Just good cookies done right. I met her at the cafe, a cozy spot with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu. We shook hands, and for the first time I saw Mom's recipe taking root somewhere honest. It felt like a win, but it was bittersweet. That night I sat at my table, the cookie jar catching the lamplight. My blog had become a chorus of voices, people sharing their own betrayals, their own fights. I'd started this to save Mom's legacy, but it was costing me Harper, maybe forever. I closed my eyes, the weight of it all settling in my bones. I wasn't sure who I was becoming, but I felt her slipping away, and the silence that followed was louder than any fight. The lawsuit hit a pause when the court ordered mediation, a chance to breathe before the next storm. I welcomed the quiet, my days no longer ruled by frantic calls or late-night strategizing. My apartment felt softer in the morning light, the hum of the city a gentle backdrop. I started waking early, slipping out to the community garden down the street. It was a small patch of green tended by neighbors I barely knew, but it called to me. I'd sit on a bench watching dew settle on the leaves, letting my thoughts unravel. One morning I brought a trowel and a packet of seeds, vanilla orchids, delicate and stubborn like Mom had been. I'd found them at a nursery, their name tugging at a memory of her perfume. Kneeling in the dirt, I dug a small hole, my hands steady as I pressed the seeds into the earth. It wasn't about the flowers blooming. It was about planting something, believing it could grow. I patted the soil, smoothed my fingers stained brown, and felt a stillness I hadn't known in months. Bailey became a regular in my life, her quiet presence a comfort. We'd meet at the garden sometimes, sipping coffee from paper cups, talking about anything but the lawsuit. She'd left the bakery for good, taking a job at a bookstore, and her stories about quirky customers made me laugh in a way I'd forgotten I could. "You're different now," she said one day, her eyes sharp but kind. Stronger, maybe. I tilted my head, considering. I don't feel stronger, just clearer, like I can see myself for the first time. She nodded like she understood, and we sat in silence, the garden humming around us. I started visiting Mom's grave more often, not out of grief, but to talk. The cemetery was tucked behind a church, its stones worn but peaceful. I'd sit cross-legged on the grass, tracing the letters of her name. "I'm fighting for you," I'd say, my voice low. "But I'm also fighting for me." I told her about the bake-off, the blog, the way strangers had rallied around her recipe. I told her about Harper too, how I missed her even now. The words came easier each time, like I was shedding a weight I hadn't known I carried. Dad called one evening, his voice softer than usual. "Can you come over, Celeste? Just to talk." I drove to his house, the familiar route grounding me. He was on the porch, a glass of iced tea in his hand, the cicadas loud in the dusk. We sat in wicker chairs, the air warm and heavy. "I've been thinking," he said, staring at the horizon. "I wasn't there for you, not like I should have been. I let Harper pull me along and I hurt you both." I sipped my tea, the sweetness sharp on my tongue. "You did what you thought was right," I said, but my voice held an edge. "I just wish you'd told me about Mom's letter sooner." He nodded, his eyes distant. I was scared. Scared of losing you both. But I'm here now. Whatever you need, I'm here." His words weren't grand, but they were honest, and that was enough. We sat there, the silence between us, not heavy but full, like a promise being rebuilt. I started baking again, not for a cause, but for myself. My kitchen became a sanctuary flower, dusting the counters, the oven's warmth wrapping around me. I'd make small batches of Mom's cookies, tweaking the recipe just enough to feel like I was part of it. I'd leave jars of them on neighbors' doorsteps, no note, just a quiet gift. One woman, an older lady with a sharp laugh, caught me once. "You're the cookie girl," she said, grinning. "Keep 'em coming." I smiled, my heart lifting, and walked home under a sky streaked with pink. The mediation loomed, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I'd found something in these quiet days, a strength that didn't need to shout. I looked at the vanilla orchid seeds still buried and thought of Mom. She'd taught me to hold on, but also to let go. I wasn't sure what Harper would say when we faced each other, but I knew I'd be ready, my roots deeper than I'd ever imagined. The days slipped by, each one softer than the last. I found a rhythm in the quiet, a way to carry the weight without letting it crush me. My mailbox held a letter from Harper one morning, her handwriting jagged like she'd written it in a rush. "I'm sorry, Celeste," it began. "I got lost in ambition and wanting to be more than Mom's shadow. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to say it." I read it twice, my coffee cooling on the table. The words stirred something, grief maybe, or the ghost of who we'd been. But I didn't cry. I folded the letter and tucked it away, not ready to answer, not sure I ever would be. I started spending evenings at the hearth, helping Lila set up for the cookie sales. The cafe was a warm blur of clinking mugs and low laughter, and I'd lose myself in the routine of stacking jars, wiping counters. One night a customer, a man with graying hair, paused at the display. "These your Mom's cookies?" he asked, his voice rough but kind. I nodded and he smiled. "They taste like my childhood." "Thank you." His words settled in me, a small light in the dark. Bailey and I planned a second bake-off, this one smaller, just for the neighborhood. We sat at my kitchen table, sketching out flyers, her pen scratching softly. "You're good at this," she said, glancing up. "Bringing people together. It's who you are." I looked at her surprised, and realized she was right. I'd spent so long fighting Harper's shadow. I'd forgotten how to see myself. I smiled, a real one, and we kept working the room warm with possibility. Sheila showed up at the cafe one afternoon, her usual sharpness softened. She ordered a coffee, then hesitated, her fingers tapping the counter. "I was wrong about you," she said finally. "Thought you were weak letting Harper walk all over you. But you're not. You're like your mom, steady even when it hurts." I stared at her, caught off guard, but her eyes held no malice, only a grudging respect. "Thanks," I said, and she nodded, leaving with her coffee. It wasn't a grand moment, but it felt like a door creaking open. Renee met me for lunch, her briefcase stuffed with papers. "We're in a strong position," she said, stirring sugar into her tea. "Harper's countersuit is flimsy and the chain's out. You've got this, Celeste." I nodded, but my mind wasn't on the lawsuit. It was on the people who'd shown up, the customers, the neighbors, even Sheila. They'd carried me through, not because I'd won, but because I'd kept going. I thanked Renee, my voice steady, and left feeling lighter, like I'd shed a skin I no longer needed. I walked home through the park, the late summer air thick with the scent of cut grass. Kids ran past, their shouts fading into the hum of cicadas. I stopped at a bench, the same one where Bailey had first told me about the trademark. I sat, closing my eyes, and let the world move around me. I thought of Harper's letter, of Mom's grave, of the orchid seeds waiting under the earth. I wasn't whole, not yet, but I was enough. I breathed in slow and deep, and let the moment hold me quiet and still, like a promise I could finally keep. The mediation came and went, and with it the lawsuit ended. The court revoked Harper's trademark, giving Mom's recipe back to me, to our family. I sat in Renee's office as she handed me the papers, her smile quiet but proud. "You did it, Celeste," she said. I nodded, the weight of the wind settling oddly in my chest. It wasn't joy, not exactly, but a kind of peace like setting down a load I'd carried too long. I drove home the documents in my bag and let the quiet of the moment hold me. Life took on a new shape, slow and deliberate. I started mornings with a walk to the corner market picking out fresh fruit for breakfast. The owner, a man named Carl with a crooked grin, would toss in an extra peach, saying I looked like I needed it. I'd smile, tucking the fruit in my bag, and walk back under the soft autumn light. Those small exchanges, brief and ordinary, became my anchor, proof that the world still turned gently. The hearth became my second home. Lila and I worked out a rhythm, baking Mom's cookies every Tuesday and Friday. The cafe's wooden tables were always full, customers lingering over coffee, their voices a low hum. I'd watch them bite into the cookies, their faces softening, and feel a warmth I hadn't known I could still hold. One afternoon, a woman left a note with her tip. "These taste like my mom's kitchen. Thank you." I slipped it into my pocket, my throat tight, and kept it there all day. I started a baking program at the rec center, teaching kids how to knead dough, measure sugar, tell stories through food. Their small hands, sticky with butter, reminded me of myself at their age, eager and unafraid. One boy, shy with a gap-toothed smile, brought me his first batch, uneven but earnest. "For you," he said, pushing the plate forward. I took a bite, the cookie crumbling, and told him it was perfect. His grin stayed with me, a reminder of why I'd fought. Dad and I found a new ease. We'd meet for lunch sometimes at a diner with cracked vinyl booths and strong coffee. He'd talk about his garden, the roses blooming despite his clumsy care, and I'd listen, letting his voice fill the spaces we'd left empty. Sheila joined us once her usual edge softened, and we talked about nothing important, weather, recipes, the news. It wasn't family like before, but it was enough, a fragile thread we were learning to weave. Bailey and I grew closer, our friendship a steady hum. We'd sit on my couch some nights, splitting a bottle of wine, her laughter cutting through my quieter moments. She'd taken to the bookstore job, her stories of odd customers now laced with confidence. "You gave me courage," she said once, her glass raised. "Watching you fight, I figured I could too." I shook my head, but her words landed a mirror to the woman I was becoming. I didn't see Harper, not after her letter. I'd heard she'd sold the bakery, moved to a smaller place across town. The news came through Nora, who'd kept tabs on her for her column. I didn't ask for details, didn't want to know. The space where Harper lived in me was still tender, like a bruise that hadn't faded. I'd forgiven her in my own way, but forgiveness didn't mean closeness, not yet. I let her be, and that choice felt like freedom. Evenings were mine, spent in my kitchen with a notebook, jotting down new recipes, not Mom's but my own. I'd mix spices, test textures, lose myself in the alchemy of it. The act wasn't about winning or proving anything. It was about creating, about claiming a piece of myself I'd almost lost. I'd sit by my window after the city's glow soft outside and breathe. The fight was over, the wounds closing, and I was still here, whole in a way I hadn't expected. One crisp morning, I walked to the community garden, a thermos of tea in my hand. The vanilla orchids I'd planted months ago were sprouting, tiny green shoots pushing through the soil. I knelt beside them, my fingers brushing the earth, and felt a quiet pride. They weren't blooming yet, but they were alive, stubborn in their growth. I sat back, the thermos warm against my palms, and let the moment settle. This garden, these plants were mine. Not a fight, not a legacy, just a small piece of hope I'd carved out. I started volunteering at a shelter, baking cookies for the residents on weekends. The kitchen there was industrial, all steel and sharp edges, but it came alive when we worked. A woman named Ruth, with tired eyes and a quick wit, helped me one day. As we shaped dough, she told me about her sister, how they'd fought over their parents' house until it tore them apart. "I wish I'd let it go," she said, her hands pausing. I nodded, understanding more than I could say. Her story wasn't mine, but it echoed, a reminder that pain wasn't just my burden. Bailey and I turned the baking program into a regular event, not just for kids, but for anyone who wanted to learn. We'd crowd into the rec center's kitchen floor, dusting our clothes, stories spilling out as ovens hummed. A teenager, all lanky limbs and quiet defiance, told me how baking helped him forget his parents' fights. I listened, passing him a spatula, and saw myself in his need to create something whole. These moments, small and unpolished, were stitching me back together, not as the girl I'd been, but as someone new. One evening I found a voicemail from Harper. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. "I'm moving away, Celeste," she said. "I sold the last of the bakery's equipment. I wanted you to know I'm sorry, really. I hope you're okay." I played it again, sitting on my couch, the city's lights flickering outside. I didn't call back, but I didn't delete it either. Forgiveness wasn't a switch I could flip. It was a slow burn, a choice to let her go without carrying the hurt. I wished her peace silently and let that be enough. The Hearth's cookie sales grew, and Lila suggested we donate part of the profits to the shelter. We set up a fund in Mom's name, not for glory, but to keep her spirit alive, her love for giving, for making people feel seen. At the fund's launch, Dad and Sheila came standing awkwardly among the crowd. Dad hugged me, his grip tight, and Sheila offered a small smile, her first real one. We didn't talk about Harper, but their presence felt like a step towards something whole. I kept writing my blog, not about the fight anymore, but about the small things, recipes, memories, the way a stranger's kindness could shift a day. Readers commented, sharing their own stories of rebuilding after loss. One wrote, "Your words make me feel less alone." I read it late at night, my laptop's glow soft, and realized that was my victory, not the lawsuit, not the recipe, but this connection, this quiet way of healing others as I healed myself. I learned something through all this, something I carry now like a steady pulse. Trust is fragile, a gift you give carefully, but it's not your whole strength. That comes from within, from choosing to stand up, to create, to love, even after you've been broken. I'm not the girl who trusted blindly anymore, but I'm not bitter either. I'm Celeste, and I've learned to hold my own light, to let it shine even in the dark. What's a moment that taught you who you really are? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. If this journey spoke to you, please like, subscribe, or share it with someone who needs it. Thank you for being here, for listening, for carrying your own light. Here's to healing, to growing, to finding our way.